Let's go through the directions on creating a new repository on the command line. Now, in their directions, they mention creating a README using the touch command, initializing the repository using git, adding the README to a commit, committing the README, adding this GitHub URL as a remote to our Git repository, and then pushing our files to Git. So let's give this a try. In Terminal, at my projects directory, I'm going to make a new directory called My First Repo. It's important to try to keep a 1-to-1 ratio with the names of your projects to the names of your repositories. So I've created that directory and I'll cd into it. And we'll see that it's empty when I use the ls command. Now I want to create a README file. So I'll use the touch command to create readme.md. MD stands for Markdown. Running ls again, we can see that README has been created. Now I'll want to initialize the repository. This creates some files that Git uses to keep track of versions and files in our repository. So I'll use the git init command, and it'll tell me that it's initialized the Git repository in my folder. Now I want to add some files and commit them to my project. So I will add readme.md. And in order to check that it's been added, I'll use the git status command to make sure that my file has been added to a commit. Once it's been added and I'm ready to commit my changes, I'll use the git commit command. And for ease of use, we'll be using the -m flag, which allows us to force a message set on the git command. Otherwise, it would open us up into Vim editor and ask us to create a message there. I'll stick in a message that's related to the files that I'm committing and run the commit command. You may get some messages from Git depending on your configuration. In this case, we got a global username and a global user email that were set based on the current author of this directory. The most important part here is we can see that one file was changed and we created the readme.md. If we run git status again, we can see there's nothing to commit. Our working directory is clean. This means there are no new changes since our last commit. Now it's important to note that commits don't actually put our files up into GitHub. This is just a local way to keep track of changes as we're working on them. So we might make a commit for a change to our README and then make another commit for a change to index.html before moving all the changes up to GitHub. So in order to get these changes up to GitHub, we'll be using the git push command. Now, by not pushing to a specific destination, this is showing us that we don't have a remote URL connected to our project. If we look back at our GitHub page, we'll see that we've gone through the commit, but we didn't do the remote add. So let's go ahead and run this command. Note that the URL will be different for your project. This is my user directory here. Now I can see that the remote has been added by doing git remote. We'll see that origin has been added. I can see the exact URL by doing git remote -v to see the URL and what access I have to it. Now that I have the remote added, I can push to the master branch of my repository on GitHub by using the git push command. The first time I do this, I need to set what's called the upstream to the origin repository master branch. After I do this the first time, I won't need to do it again. After I've logged into GitHub, we'll see the results of our push. Switching back to our GitHub page, if I refresh the page, we'll now see that instructor has authored 4 minutes ago readme.md. It's an empty file. We'll be able to browse our commit history to see all files that have been committed, and we'll actually be able to navigate between these files when we have more available.